What's up, everybody? Jay Howe, and there is a new game on the horizon. It is Star Wars Force Arena. Now, it's basically a clone, in a sense, of Clash Royale, a hit game from last year that I played on crazy amounts of levels. And, well, this one brings a little bit of a different spice, a little bit of a different flavor. So I'm going to go over the top 10 tips to get you started into Star Wars Force Arena. Right off the bat, if you are part of the pre-registration, it means that they gave you a ton of credits to play with, and they're giving you all types of incentives to be one of the first million people to register, and that's great. But if you're not familiar with the genre, do not spend all your credits at once. Leveling up too fast can do more harm than good. And I say that because while it is based on experience on when you get to the next level, it's also based on what level you're at. Not only just that, so if you have better cards, you'll play against people with better cards, and that might be a little bit more tough. Now, for some people, they might excel at this if they're used to this genre. So using all the credits you received during that pre-registration special could put you in a tougher spot than you'd like to be. Our next tip is a combat tip. Now, when placing your troops, you don't always have to place them up front. You can place them at the back so that they have to work their way up the battlefield while you're still collecting energy, and they're not taking damage in the meantime. It can create a bigger group by placing them at the back. And the thing is you don't just have to tap them. You can click and drag them on the map, so it's always best. Now, a lot of times you'll find, especially early on in the newer levels and newer people, is that you might have to just spawn them up at front to deal with other people doing the same thing. But remember that if you are a little bit patient, you can put them at the back and work your way to the front and then get a huge push in, and something that a lot of people have trouble dealing with. Tip number 3 is don't upgrade all of your troops from light to dark the first chance that you get. It's very enticing, and you're going to be able to upgrade them. Now, the thing about it is you basically want to focus on one side to learn, and not only just that deck. And the thing about it is that they give you mission bonuses to do the light and the dark, so you have to find a good balance. But if you're just focusing on upgrading all of your cards at once, then maximizing the power out of one deck versus having a bunch of cards that you can't use at higher levels is going to be a little bit tougher. So get more value out of your upgrades by familiarizing yourself with one set deck and then trying to make that work. Instead of trying to upgrade all of your cards at a very low level, try and upgrade a certain amount and then see how they work for you before moving on to the other ones. That goes back to tip number 1 as far as saving some of those credits so that you can change your deck as needed without spreading yourself too thin. All right, now here's a big one, and this is part of that freemium thing that goes for games like this. Free packs are on a cooldown, and the thing about it is that you can log in at any point, and these have varying degrees of time. Now, the higher tier the deck, the more cards you'll get out of it, which means the more time that it will take to open. So make sure and check back throughout the day to open those free packs and to see those cards. Again, those cards are much easier than buying those cards in the shop, so getting them from that. Also, to go along with this, spending crystals aren't an effective way, and it's really the pay-to-win strategy. They really don't do anything other than allow you to speed things up or to obtain other stuff. Save these for when they really matter, but if you've got the money, then spend it. Our next tip is talking about deck building, and when you build your deck, make sure it's diverse. Now, there's a few cheesy strategies out there right now that we don't have time to get into, but having things do multiple offensive as well as having some defensive units is actually really good. You can check card strengths and weaknesses by clicking on a card and going to the advantages tab. Knowing to have some type of AoE damage to deal with something, or having single target damage to deal with some of the heroes that are going to be pushing against you. You need to be able to have diversity in your deck, and going all in on one might work for you, but when you get to more experienced players, those types of strategies won't work as well. Now, for our next tip, this might not be great for a lot of the early people, but as you start to progress and want to know what some of the stronger cards are, you can check the leaderboard and see what some of the top people are playing with. Now, it won't always work for you because they'll have cards at different levels or unlocked cards that you might not be going with, but it can give you an idea on the play style that people are using to succeed with. And the top level meta, which is basically what's best at the time, might not be for you. So don't be fooled by that. But what's best later in the game could be good early in the game, especially if you look at deck composition and seeing what type of diversity they have within their own deck. The next tip is a little bit of a weird one, but at the same time, it can be highly valuable. At level 3, you can join a guild, and this can oftentimes be a really good place for a lot of people. You can practice against other players without worrying about players' skills or rewards and losing or gaining experience. And that's the biggest thing, is while you don't get the rewards, you can get the experience of combat, and the combat experience can really help. If you're trying out a different deck and you want to see what works for you or what might counter it, you can have friendly games without having to worry about getting or losing experience, and this is a really good way to be able to excel. Joining a guild cannot be understated and is a really good way to get further in the game. Our next tip is another combat tip. Now, this might not necessarily be the way to go at low levels, because sometimes you can basically just put everything in one lane and run to the core. But it is best to take out a turret on one side and then switch to the other. And to do this, it's that later, as you get more experience, more people are more adept to defending, which means that getting that second tower on the front line is far easier than getting that second tower on the back line. But do not neglect that other lane. You might have to send a couple of troops back there from time to time, but giving yourself that advantage to take down that second tower towards the end of the game while the other one is just trying to focus on getting your one tower down, they have a much further distance to go, and you have a much easier way of defending and taking down their front tower and defending your own. For our last tip, it's going to be something for people new to the genre. They just won't understand. It's don't get frustrated when you can't rank up. Oftentimes, this is based around plateauing around a certain level to where you can't get to the next tier. And oftentimes, it's just a matter of you need to be more experienced with your deck, or the most likely case is you need to be able to rank up your cards. You get to a point to where it's very difficult to go. Now, this is very similar to other games, and when I played Clash Royale, there were several people that all hit the same plateau. Everybody that you talk to always hit the same plateau, and it's just a matter of playing more, getting your cards up. Remember, the higher level you are, the more damage and health your structures have. So getting to that next level is also important, but a lot of it is based around the deck or finding the right deck composition. There's always going to be that hump, and it's the nature of the beast. The only way to improve and get stronger is to just keep playing. That's going to do it for the top 10 tips for getting started into Star Wars Force Arena. Be sure and subscribe or check back for more updates in the future as this game evolves. It's a brand new game, and if you're new to the genre, you might want to take a few tips in with you before you hit that first combat. It's a well-rounded game with really good strategies put in the beginning to help you excel. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, happy hunting. See you again.